Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is one of those episodes of Daily Palantir that's an exciting episode because today was one of the most exciting days we've had in Palantir history, I believe, over the past 3 years at least, as covering the company since the company's went public, because there were so many events that happened back to back to back all at once today that caused just an extravaganza of events in the world of Palantir. And on top of that, the stock price actually reflected that extravaganza. We have to talk about the Titan contract that I talked about yesterday in Daily Palantir, saying that, hey, I think we're getting this $179 million contract because William Blair put out this note. We actually got that $179 million contract, and that street really cared about that. Second of all, AIPCon 3 is starting tomorrow. I will be live streaming it on this channel. A lot of people probably didn't even know they were working on AIPCon 3. They announced it this morning. We're going to go through the client list and all the big names that are actually speaking at AIPCon and the implications of some of the things they said about boot camps in that press release. So we'll talk about that today. Then we got a price target upgrade by Mariana at Bank of America, basically saying, you know what, Palantir getting this Titan contract is not worth $24. It's actually worth $28. And then on top of that, you had Palantir close above $26 for the first time since September 2021. We've got a lot to talk about. Let's get into it. All right, so the first thing I think we got to talk about, which is pretty obvious right here, Palantir right now, after hours at the time of recording this, is at $26.21. We hit a high of $26.75 today. That was at about 3:30. And now we are here at $26.21. The fact that we actually closed above 26 is just phenomenal. I mean, it is one of those things that you are encouraged by if you're a Palantir investor. You want to see this type of price action, and you don't really expect this type of price action. Most of us have been excited just for the fact that we were holding 21 and 22 to 25, because we were at least grateful that we were past that $16 to $18 purgatory that we were pretty much stuck in for the better part of a year. Now at $26, it becomes interesting because from what I'm seeing and some of the order book flows I'm looking at, there's not that much resistance in the 27s. At one point in the morning, there was a 320,000 shares that were sitting at $27.30. That resistance fell away. So whoever was going to sell their shares at $27.30, I think they probably saw the run and they were like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't sell our shares that early because this bad boy can run. It seems like there is potential on the right set of catalyst to get this thing to move even higher. Now, that's crazy to say because we're up 54% year to date, but there's a couple of macro things I want to talk about right here, and then we'll get more specific to Palantir that could actually make this happen. First, on the macro stuff, this economy is not as bad as a lot of people think. Unemployment came in a little bit less hot than people expected, which is actually good for inflation data coming down. Jerome Powell, we streamed him on the Market Open today in front of Congress testifying. They asked him about climate change. They asked him about Ukraine. They asked him about DEI. They did not ask him about the economy. So basically the market was like, all right, so this guy has nothing interesting to say because, you know, Congress wants to ask him about all this other random stuff. So really there was nothing unique that Jerome Powell said today that kind of made the market scared or weary. And so the market continued to rally. You had the S&P today that was up about 1% after falling 1% yesterday. It was up about 0.51%. And then you had NVIDIA, which is the next macro thing I want to talk about, even though NVIDIA is not macroeconomic, but the implications of NVIDIA are absolutely macroeconomic. They were up another 3% today, $887. They hit a high of $897 today, $3 away from $900. Why are they macroeconomic? Well, AI is real, and NVIDIA's earnings proved to the market that if AI is real, they have to take any company associated with AI a lot more seriously. So those are all the macro things that are kind of making us feel like maybe Palantir in this environment at this valuation at about $56 billion right now is not that insane, given the market is able to withhold that. And we are at 5% interest rates. So it's not like Palantir is doing this in 0% interest rates and, you know, everything's going crazy. It's like, hey, it's a tough economic environment and Palantir is still performing. Now, those are some of the macro things. What are the actual case-specific things that could cause Palantir stock to go a little bit higher? Well, they have AIPCon tomorrow. AIPCon, if they show up some really good presentations, some really good use cases of how industry-leading clients are actually using their product, they're going to have a lot of institutional investors across the entire world looking at this conference thinking, you know what, maybe it's time to start a position in Palantir. Number two, S&P 500. We only have a 41% institutional float. Snowflake, which is down 30%. Since they went public and down about 25% since their earnings, they have a 65% institutional float. So I would say, and I think the reason Palantir got rejected from the S&P 500 last week is primarily because of our low institutional float in relative to all the other companies that are in the S&P 500. I think we have to get that up to 25%, 65%, so another 25% to go. If that's the case, you've got a whole new conference coming up with a bunch of people excited about what Palantir is doing. You got this government contract we're about to talk about in a second that Mariana from Bank of America believes is the catalyst for more reacceleration of government growth. Then on top of that, you've got all these institutional investors looking at Palantir as a play to potentially be in the S&P 500, so they're going to have to buy the stock and put some buy-side pressure on it. And then finally, you've got Q1 earnings that I don't know if it's going to be a monster earnings. I don't know if we're going to get the NVIDIA moment. Probably that quarter is a couple quarters away, maybe early 2025. But if Palantir's customer count goes through the roof, the street's going to realize that this thing is going to explode at one point. And if that happens in Q1, yeah, this bad boy is headed higher. So look, could we get a pullback on Palantir? 1,000%. Could we get a pullback in the broader market? 1,000%. But it seems like the market sentiment has changed. AI has become real for Palantir. It's not just a buzzword. And investors are more willing to give Palantir a premium primarily because they realize the difference between a founder-led company that actually knows what he's talking about, actually knows what he's doing, and some of the other competitors out there that are just not that exciting. Snowflake today fell about 1%, and their market cap is officially $54.9 billion. Palantir is at 56.9. This is the first day, I believe, in basically 3 years, Palantir has had a higher market cap than Snowflake. For the far majority of the past 3 years, Snowflake has had a higher market cap, and now it seems like Palantir has finally flipped that. $26 closed. Seems like the street is excited about Palantir. So that was the big news in the context of the price action today. Now, what actually happened to be able for that price action to become a reality, which it did indeed become a reality at $26. The first big piece of news, and this is the Titan contract that we have to discuss, is that Palantir officially won the first prototype phase, or the prototype maturation phase of the Titan contract. So this contract is worth about $1.5 billion over 5 years. We have multiple sources confirming that. Palantir today got a $178 million 2-year contract, which is $89 million a year. This is the fourth largest annual contract by revenue run rate. Why is this so important? The Titan contract is one of those contracts that's part of JADC2. Now, JADC2, and we're going to hear Mariana, we're going to read her report in terms of how she conceptualizes it. JADC2 is basically taking all of the different services that exist, the military, the army, the United States Air Force, all that stuff, putting it together into one central operating system. Kind of sounds like Palantir. The Titan contract is just a small part of the overall billions of dollars, and Mariana from Bank of America knows this, which is why she upgraded the stock today, that are going to be given out over the next decade to defense companies that are able to provide the software to be able to make this real. Palantir got one of the first phases. Now, they got $36 million back in June of 2022 when they were first rolling this out, when they were competing with Raytheon. They got another couple million after that, and then today was one of the big phases where they got a $178 million contract to be able to develop these prototypes. There is going to be many, many more phases over the next decade. Now, why is this really important? Number one, they beat Raytheon for the deal. Palantir was going neck and neck with Raytheon. William Blair yesterday said, look, we think they're probably going to beat Raytheon. And today it was confirmed we beat Raytheon. Palantir with Anduril and a couple of other subcontractors they're working with, which are not traditional hardware companies like Raytheon that has a lot of political influence. We beat Raytheon, which is a very big deal. It means the meritocracy of software actually won in the procurement of that software, which is why Palantir sued the Army back in 2011, because the whole idea was like, hey, just because you know that guy and he's on the board of directors, that doesn't mean you can buy their software, because the United States, essentially freedoms are on the line. And in order to have those freedoms protected, we need to have the best product that's working. And that lawsuit is paying dividends years into the future. So the first big thing is that we beat Raytheon. The second big thing is that these types of contracts typically go to hardware defense contractors, the Raytheons, the Lockheed Martins of the world, etc. Palantir is a software company. Shyam Sankar said 2 years ago, he believes Palantir will become the first software prime. What does that mean? That means the first company in the United States of America's history where when they need something done, they call you up and you are able to procure a solution, and there's basically no competition. You're the top dog that the United States looks to. That's what Lockheed Martin does. That's what Raytheon does, right? And they've been doing this for decades. Palantir is now in a position where they have won a prime contract, which is what Titan was, that usually goes to hardware contractors as a software vendor. That is such a big deal in the context of their overall government growth, hopefully reaccelerating, because it's been deaccelerating over the past couple quarters, going into this next decade. And it's going to be very exciting to see how the street is able to kind of reconcile the fact that that government revenue is going to be sticky, it's going to be lump sum, and there's going to be a lot of it because the government, we know they have an unlimited budget when it comes to defense spending. So that was the first piece of news that we got today that got the market super, super excited. And that's why Palantir also started to go up about 10% today. The second piece of news that was very, very exciting. This piece of news literally broke, I think, 10 minutes after the Titan news broke. The PR went live officially on Palantir's website. AIPCon 3 is happening tomorrow. 1 p.m. I'll be live here on the YouTube channel, so you guys can join and we'll see all these different customers that are going to be presenting at Palantir's AIPCon. 20 new customers and partners will be presenting. So those are customers and partners, meaning different people that they're working with. And they announced that 60 customers will showcase their work in Palantir's AIP platform. There's probably going to be like 5 keynotes, and then the rest of it is going to be little like mini boot camps that these customers are going to be having at the actual conference. Palantir introduced AIP in mid-2023, and later that year introduced AIP boot camps, Palantir's hands-on keyboard acceleration program for customers to go from zero to use case in a matter of hours. Since launching, nearly 850 AIP boot camps have been completed in the United States and around the world, with concentrations of customers in Detroit, Chicago, New York City, Washington, D.C., and more. Okay, why does that 850 number matter? On February 5th, when we had earnings, Palantir announced on Q4 earnings date, we did 500 customers. This is 850. That's 350 from February to now, which is 1 month, right? It's been a month, and they're increasing that 500 bootcamp session to 850. That is a 70% growth rate month over month in terms of boot camps deployed. Now, I don't think that's going to happen forever. I don't know if that's sustainable forever. Maybe it's even 20% month over month growth. Maybe it's 10%. But the fact that Palantir is being that aggressive in conducting the bootcamp sessions all across the world, we know they're going to be hosting one in Zurich this month. They're going to be hosting one in London next month, and they already hosted one in December with Accenture in India. And so it's like what I'm seeing right here is massive scale in the context of different boot camps that are starting to go live, and that scale is starting to become materialized for Palantir in a way that eventually, I believe, if you attach a 30 to 35% customer conversion rate on the 850 boot camps they're doing, or the 350 boot camps they've done already, we're talking about hundreds of new customers per quarter that are going to start to happen. Now, look, maybe it's not happening next quarter. Maybe it doesn't even happen in 2024. Maybe all these customers are getting on pilots and they need 12 months of being able to work with this thing before they even think of being monetized. But the fact that it's scaling that aggressively, I also think the street got really excited for it, because they were like, wait a second, if you did 850 boot camps, like what happens when you get to the point where you're doing 500 boot camps a month, 600 boot camps a month? What happens when it's, Karp said it's not about money, it's about resources and developers that can actually go to these boot camps. So if it's not money that's holding you back, if you just got the talent, it's going to be really exciting to see how these boot camps scale. This was the title of Palantir's PR, Palantir to unveil new customers at an oversubscribed AIPCon. Now, the reason they use oversubscribed, I believe, in the title is because Karp has been saying, hey, to get into these AIPcons, you have to literally have a backstage pass, right? It's like a rock concert. So I think they wanted to underscore the fact that this AIP conference was really hard to get into. You have to be very special to even be invited. And that means their software is real, it's legit, it's exciting, it's just something fundamentally different than what the market has seen, which is why the market is potentially, or why clients are potentially gravitating to Palantir and why investors took notice. Now, here's some of the names of the clients that are going to be there. Lennar, General Mills, Lowe's, Cone Health, CSX, Kaz Investments, Partsdown, 8VC, and OpenAI. Now, I'm pretty sure OpenAI is not a customer of Palantir. It seems like OpenAI will likely be a partner of Palantir, and they're going to be presenting their partnership tomorrow in some capacity. Maybe it's on the live stage, maybe it's in a different booth. But the fact that OpenAI is actually at AIPCon, and there is some type of relationship between OpenAI and Palantir, even if it's just a partnership for distribution or sales or whatever it may be, like just enterprise LLMs, this is exciting stuff because it means Palantir is playing a game with some of the biggest companies in the world when it comes to AI. OpenAI is right now worth about $88 billion. They're doing $2 billion in revenue. Palantir is worth $57 billion. They're doing $2.6 billion in revenue. So when it comes to AI and when it comes to companies that are at the cutting edge of what AI actually means, particularly for enterprises, because we know that's not only where all the money is, but that's also where all the value is in terms of companies using AI to increase their earnings, which increases their revenue, decreases their cost. That's what gets them the multiple in the stock market. Like, that is how important Palantir software is. And the fact that they're working with some of the premier companies in this AI space, I think is also very exciting when it comes to AIPCon. Now, here's one more thing I want to show about AIPCon that we found today. Palantir released like a poster for their AIPCon. And take a look at this. It's an image of the sky, and the title, the little tagline here, compressing time and space. I don't know what the heck Palantir is going to cook up. I have no idea. But it seems like they're going to cook up something That's going to be really freaking cool, dude. It's going to be something with a space-time continuum, Back to the Future, Meta Constellation. Who knows what they're working on, but they're working on something. And the fact that they're saying compressing time and space, AIP, artificial intelligence, this is going to be one of those things you don't want to miss. And in the context of the stock for investors, it's going to be one of those things where if they show off something really, really cool, like really cool, the stock market, meaning institutional investors that are, we had 200 million shares in volume today. I'm pretty sure that 10% move was not retail. That was likely institutional. I think a lot of those guys are going to be like, you know what, screw it. We need to buy some Palantir. Now, it depends on what this conference looks like, what the partnership looks like, the stuff they present. But the fact that that even has a chance of happening tomorrow after the stock is already up 50%, it just shows the speed of execution that Palantir is really working at. They are compounding the growth from all different angles. And eventually we're going to see that in a monster quarter when it comes to the numbers. Maybe that quarter is not right now, but I think the street's going to want to get some exposure to that before that quarter inevitably happens. Okay, so all of that was pretty exciting. And then we got another bombshell that happened in the middle of the day, which was, I mean, again, this thing is just, it was just crazy to see this happen. Mariana's, put this in the description for those that want to read the entire thing as well. Mariana upgrades her price target from 24 to 28. Why does she do it? Let's read a little bit from the first paragraph. In Greek mythos, the War of Titans lasted 10 years and ended with Olympians, a younger generation of gods, taking the helm. 8 years after Palantir sued the U.S. Army and ultimately beat out Raytheon for the DGCSA contract, we find it fitting Palantir has once again won a battle against the old guard and been named Prime on Titan. Mariana has literally started her Wall Street price target upgrade report the way that Palantir's Alex Karp starts off his shareholder letters by being philosophical, using quotes from like old German philosophers. She's talking about Greek mythology. I mean, this is insanity. This is the most exciting thing ever that Mariana is actually like, you know what? Like, we're going to take a page out of Alex Karp's book and we're going to make this a super, super exciting way to discuss what's going on in the world of Palantir. Titan ushers in a new era of procurement. This is the first time a software company has been named a prime on a hardware production program. This is what we talked about a little bit ago, which we see as a signal that the DoD is embracing change. The team assembled by Palantir is a mix of traditional partners and non-traditional partners like Anduril. The approach is a unique and a realization of Palantir's strategy to develop cutting-edge AI-enabled capabilities, which are present from initial development to final product delivery. She then talks about JATC2. JATC2 is the DoD's effort to connect individual networks of services, the Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, Navy, Space Force, into a single network. Realizing this vision is a critical priority for the DoD and key to the U.S. maintaining an enduring advantage against peer threats. Obviously, the geopolitical landscape that we're in, the United States wants to spend more on defense. Palantir showcased the demo of the Titan unit, which was used as their software for a digital backbone back in CES in 2023, and how the software is capable of connecting sensor, comms, and vehicles across disparate systems. We see it likely Palantir will be more involved in the development, either through their partner relationships or penetrate the program if Titan proves to be as successful as Project Maven, which was another contract Palantir got back in 2022 for about $230 million when Google rejected to take the contract. So what we're seeing right now from an institutional perspective with Bank of America is basically a price target upgrade that is justified in the context of government revenue reaccelerating. Mariana actually believes that Palantir will be able to do $2.67 to $2.697 billion. Palantir said they're going to only do 2.65 to 2.68. So she's increasing it by about 20, 30 million bucks. And that is what's giving her the justification to say, hey, our price target is $28 now because, when Palantir was 13, we said it was 18. When it was 18, we said it was 24. And now that it's 24, it's been past 24 for the past couple of weeks. It seems pretty fitting that if they're going to keep growing boot camps the way they're doing, if they're going to become the U.S. government's first software prime, which is a very big deal in the context of Raytheon that they beat, which is what she highlighted in this report, that they deserve a higher multiple. And what is this worth when JATC2, which is tens of billions of dollars over the next decade, starts to become materialized? How much of that money does Palantir get? It's probably going to be a decent amount if they're able to win a contract like this against Raytheon. That right there, I think, is what legitimized the run we had today. Could we get a pullback tomorrow? Sure. Could it happen? 100%. But the fact that we've not really seen below 20 since earnings, and really we haven't seen below 22 since earnings, and now we're in the 26 range, this is getting very, very exciting. And I think the street is starting to recognize that something big is happening when it comes to Palantir. All right, last thing I want to say right now is this little post I just want to show on Twitter that I posted earlier in the day. Because look, it's been an emotional, exciting day. I mean, we had thousands of people on the live stream today in the morning and the market closed. So thank you for everybody joining. It was really, really fun to be a part of community. I just want to read a little bit from this. Palantir is the most exciting company in the world, and so much of the world doesn't even know about them. It's our little $50 billion secret that one day will be worth much, much more than $50 billion. And eventually we'll all just be sitting back watching the world talk about how this company became massive, knowing we were all here together on days like this, obsessed with every detail of new contracts, many of which we already knew because of how insane we all are. But it'll be incredible to see the world finally figure out what we knew at $6. And what we knew at $6 is that this company probably deserves to be worth more than $6. And we started obsessing about not only this investment thesis, but this company itself. All the memes, all the jokes, all the finding random lines from random articles to get more DD, it all adds up to days like today where Palantir lands a massive contract and beats a legacy defense company like Raytheon for a $178 million deal. Beating Raytheon, given their influence, is just not an easy thing to do, but Palantir executed like they continue to do. I think this is the best community on the internet to have days like this. We've got to continue to attack. So I just wanted to read that because, like, to me, what makes days like this exciting are not just the stock going up. It's the culmination of the events that allow the stock to go up. It's the realization by bigger players that they need to allocate some capital to something that we have all recognized is worthy of our capital since it was $6, even though we might have bought, including myself, at a when it was $25, $27 in 2021. But the whole point was being on that journey and just having this process evolve and going through the basically 12 months of this thing going from $6 to $9, even though we were getting deals like this back then and the stock just wouldn't move. It was because, we kind of knew, hey, the market's not going to give it the premium right now, but once the market's ready to give it the premium, once they become gap profitable, once they figure out sales and marketing, which was a big issue for a year and a half, and once they actually innovate, and AI, ChatGPT was the perfect opportunity for Karp to basically stick the entire company on this thesis that AIP is going to be the growth driver going into the future. Then you get boot camps, then you get the NHS contract, which we don't even talk about anymore, but the NHS is a massive contract that's going to create massive healthcare contracts in the future. All of that put together, it's fun to celebrate it with people. And so thank you to everybody who joined the live streams today. Thank you to everybody who's been following along. Thank you to everyone who's been following the channel for the past couple of years. Like, it's just the most exciting thing in the world to have this type of internet community. People say cult stocks are bad. I think cult stocks deliver the most outsized returns. And I think it depends on the type of cult. If you're in a cult stock with a stock that really doesn't matter that much, then yeah, it might not be that exciting and it's really just going to be about the money. If you're in a company that has a mission, that has values, that you believe in their technology, that you believe in the leadership, and then you get a bunch of people, some of the smartest people in the world, to be part of that cult and celebrate the wins and mourn together with the losses, I think it becomes one of the most exciting, interesting, and meaningful experiences for however long it lasts. And I think this story has a long way to play out because I don't even think we've gotten started yet in terms of being able to be on a journey with people that actually care about each other because of this common interest. So many people randomly in the world don't need to care about each other. There's things that bring them together. Palantir has brought all of us together. And so it's been super fun to cover this journey, super fun to see this happen. This is one of those days that's going to go down in history for Palantir because it's the first time we closed above 26 in basically 2.5 years. And the way it happened with all the events transpiring all at once, compounding on top of each other, and the street finally realizing, hey, maybe this thing is worth a little bit more than what we thought it was really fun to see this happen. So thank you everybody for being here. Super, super exciting day. And let's just see what we can do to keep this going. Thank you everybody. I'll see you guys on the next one. AIPCon tomorrow. I'll be here. See you then. Bye-bye.